So I've just broadcasted, so now it's live and people can join. Okay, I think we can go ahead and start now. Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and good evening. Thank you for joining us at one of Education USA's virtual sessions on Let's Talk Study in the USA. Today, we're going to be talking more specifically about financial aid and scholarships and how sort of you can look at different ways of financing your education, higher education in the US. If you have any questions during the session, please feel free to post them in the Q&A section of the webinar, and we will take those questions towards the end of the session. Today for the session, we have Juana Alcala from South Puget Sound Community College, Rachel Yarbrough from Grand Valley State University, and Alfredo Varela from the College of St. Rose. And Alfredo, if you want to go ahead and start today's session.
Actually, Rachel's going to be the first speaker.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry about that. Yes, Rachel, if you can go ahead.
No worries. Yeah, let me share my screen. We can get started. All right. So good morning to all my colleagues who I'm with, and good afternoon or good evening, I should say, to everyone else who's joining us. I'm so happy to be here and talk a little bit more about our different institutions, but also especially talking about financing your way to come to the US, whichever route you're looking at, whatever degree you're looking for. So how today will work out, I'm going to focus on 3 different areas, and I'll be sharing some time with Alfredo and Juana as well. I'll be focusing on what you should be doing before that scholarship search. Then I'll focus on on-campus scholarships. And these are scholarships that are going to be offered at your specific university, sometimes based on your complete application, sometimes after acceptance. So we're going to go through the different types of areas. And then I'm also going to have Alfredo talk a little bit about off-campus scholarships. So again, if you do have questions or need anything clarified, feel free to answer that in the chat. I'll I'm sure Alfredo, Juana, and the two representatives for EducationUSA will be able to help. If not, I can also help after. So before we dive in and we talk a little bit more about funding your education, it might be good to know who I am and who I'm representing. So I am an admissions counselor at Grand Valley. I work with domestic and international students from undergrad and graduate options. So our institution, we are located in West Michigan. We are a larger public university with a little over 24,000 students, but about 21,000 students are undergraduates. So it's a very large population that we have to serve. But we have a number of graduate programs that are very interesting and a lot of our international students go into. The university itself, a very little picture, but a picture nonetheless at the very top, that will be Allendale. That is our main campus, and it's in West Michigan. It's very beautiful, it's very spread out, it's very green, and our students really like this balance because Allendale has that green. If you go 20 minutes one way, you hit Lake Michigan, and you go 20 minutes the other way, you hit Grand Rapids. That is the second picture that you'll see on this slide, and it's the second largest city in the state of Michigan. So students like that balance of water, land, city, you get a mix of everything. Two things I'll just highlight about our institution in particular. About 8,400 of our students are doing some form of co-op, internship, experiential learning. This is really important for our students to get on hands and active learning inside and outside the classroom, whether they be connecting with professors for research, or oftentimes many of our programs require or recommend an internship experience. And since we're so close to a big city, a lot of our students will have those experiences in Grand Rapids. One other thing I'll focus on will be our Office of Undergraduate Research and Scholarship. We're one of only 3 Michigan universities that have an office that is dedicated to undergrad research. This is especially important for students who are in their first 4 years in their bachelor's degree and plan on continuing on for a master or PhD track. You get connections early on with professors and you really get a unique experience. So when you're applying for additional programs later on, you have that to kind of highlight. And since we're talking about funding and aid, I'll talk about the 3 that we have at our school, and then we'll jump into the presentation. At my school, we have a $5,000 International Merit Scholarship that is automatically awarded or automatically considered for students, I should say, who submit their complete application by May 1. For graduate students, we do not have scholarships, but we do have graduate assistantships that can fund up to your full tuition. And then we have a My Scholarship database, which is essentially all accepted students who are coming to the university can apply for this aid. Now, I'm going to talk about merit, graduate assistantships, and other aid throughout the presentation, but to keep in mind what we have to offer, I thought it would be worthwhile to let you know what we have. All right, so you're thinking of going to the US for higher education. Where do you start? It's a really big step and it's a long process and can be a big journey to take underhand. So what it's really nice to know is, all right, of course you want to get some funding, but first you want to start assessing where your finances are. You want to do your own research and also be aware of deadlines. So what I mean by assessing your finances, so before going to the US, you'll want to keep in mind that to come to the US and get a student visa, you will have to show a year's worth of tuition, and you'll also have to cover room and board. There's over 4,000 schools and universities in the United States, so we have varying tuition, varying room and board fees. So start looking at the schools you're really interested in and see what you'll have to show overall. Again, this is to keep in mind if you don't get any aid at all, what you'll have to show to get that visa. Next, you'll want to do your research and find your fit. There are so many schools to look for. If you want to be in a big city, a small city, Midwest, rural, whatever you are really thinking about wanting to get out of that higher education experience, start jotting that down, start exploring. Coming to webinars like this are a perfect start, but start looking online, Facebook, YouTube, whatever it may be, to get a sense of what that campus culture is like. There are also different types of education options. So there are community colleges, which I've wanted here. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about that. But we also have 4-year university and colleges. So you'll want to start thinking about what your path to higher education will be. It's not the same for each student. So explore all options available to you. And then once you have a better sense of what your research is, what kind of school you want, maybe what your finances are, the biggest thing to also keep in mind are deadlines. You'll want to apply early. Deadlines vary from one institution to the next. At the very last bullet point, I say each school is different. I'll say that quite a few more times throughout each slide. Each school is different, they have different deadlines. They can vary between early autumn, going into May, and sometimes they might go into the summer. Each school's a little bit different, it depends on where you're at. But I encourage students to anticipate applying or at least starting the application process about a year before you'd like to attend. That might be in summer, you're doing your research, and then going into fall, autumn, you start applying. That's perfect. Connect with other opportunities like through EducationUSA to be a little bit more aware of specific deadlines at specific schools. So again, be aware of deadlines. It's really important for students. All right, so talking about on-campus scholarships, I'm going to focus first on merit-based scholarships. Now, merit is going to be awarded based on how well you perform or what documents you submit in your application. And what I mean by this is your merit scholarship might be awarded based on your GPA, your grades, your test scores, or other application documents like submitting teachers' letters of recommendation, an essay, that kind of thing. Now, one thing to keep in mind, again, each school is different, so you may or may not need to submit the SAT or ACT for scholarships. As an example, at Grand Valley, I mentioned we have that $5,000 International Merit Scholarship. All students who submit a complete application to Grand Valley will be considered for this scholarship. And we look at everything. So there's not a minimum GPA or a minimum test score. We look at everything and see who would be the best fit for our school and who would want to have that scholarship. But other universities are going to be different. Sometimes you may want to submit the SAT or ACT because that might increase the amount of scholarship you earn. Sometimes they're awarded solely based on what GPA you have at that time. So again, that's where that research element comes into play, and you'll really want to be aware of those deadlines as well. Now, one thing to also keep in mind are some scholarships are automatic and some are not automatic. So for Grand Valley, as an example, when you apply to Grand Valley, you're automatically considered for that additional scholarship. But others might need you to submit additional information. Some might be a test score or an essay, but there are other ways for on-campus scholarships, which I'll mention a little bit later on in the slide, that will require you to be admitted first and then jump into an additional database and submit an essay, a resume, or answer some questions. The biggest thing is that you'll want to go to all the international admission websites because they'll highlight those additional requirements that you'll need to submit for future aid. That was for not merit scholarships. That tends to be a conversation you have with many undergraduate applicants. And I'm going to focus and shift gears to talking about graduate aid. So again, each school is a little bit different, but one way that you can earn aid will be through graduate assistantships or teaching assistantships. So a graduate assistantship you apply to after you are accepted. Each school is different. So I know at Grand Valley, you can reach out to the department that you're going into. They will have a list or an email blast to show students what they can apply to. Many times students will also go through the graduate school. They'll have a listing of all graduate assistant positions. So again, doing your research and figuring out what you want to get out of your time at the university, you want to figure out the difference between a graduate assistantship and a teaching assistantship. So graduate assistantship, you tend to work in an office. It's about 20 hours per week. You might be doing some research or helping out with research in the office that you're working for, but there's so many different types of graduate assistantships out there. For example, in the admissions office, we have 2 graduate assistantships. One will be helping our orientation registration for undergraduates, and another is just a support in our office, giving presentations, maybe meeting with students to understand the admissions process. So it's more of that office experience. Now, some schools will have teaching assistantships, and that's where you may have to teach an undergraduate course. You might have to do a little bit more research or all research, or have other roles at the university. So make sure when you're applying for those graduate and teaching assistantships, you're aware of the requirements. Another thing to keep in mind is that how much aid you receive varies from each school. So at Grand Valley, as an example, a graduate assistantship can cover half or up to all of your tuition to attend the university. Be aware of that. You will also receive a stipend or a paycheck typically every 2 weeks. And oftentimes this can also vary in length of commitment. Sometimes it's just for 1 academic year, but sometimes if you're signing on for a teaching assistant or a more in-depth graduate assistantship role, you might have to commit to 2 or more years depending on your program. The biggest thing, a lot like when we're talking about being aware of deadlines for scholarships, you'll want to apply for graduate assistant positions early as they are competitive. Oftentimes they might require not only an application, but an interview, getting connected with the faculty. There are more steps to getting those roles versus just getting a scholarship. All right, so that's kind of a lot of information I covered in the first section. I'm talking a little bit about some of our on-campus scholarships for merit-based and for graduate assistants and teaching assistantships. If you do have questions about the university, this is my contact information, so feel free to jot it down. I might also include it in the chat. But again, if you have questions, I'm going to pass it off to Alfredo to talk a little bit more about different ways that you can earn aid here at the at different universities.
Good morning, everybody. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now, and there we go. Okay, so I'm from the College St. Rose. The College St. Rose is located in Albany, New York. We are the capital city of New York, about 2 hours outside of New York City. We're also about 2 hours outside of Boston and just about 3 hours south of Montreal, Canada. So we're quite centrally located. We have a lot of resources. We're close to natural and have a very natural environment. We're a city of about 1.5 million people, so not too big, but not too small. Lots of activities for students, lots of opportunities for them to get involved. There are also a number of other institutions, universities, and colleges in the area. So there are a large number of international and domestic students in the Albany area. The College St. Rose is offering both in-person and hybrid courses for this fall. And and I also want to say I know that there may be an issue still. Many of the consular offices are closed, but in the event you have an opportunity or you're currently in the United States and you're looking for some place, we are still accepting applications. So the College St. Rose is about 4,000 students, both graduate and undergraduate. We have over 50 different academic programs in both the graduate and undergraduate area. We have 4 different colleges, institutions. We have the School of Business, School of Education, School of Sciences, and School of Arts and Performance. A few of our main programs that a lot of international students are interested in include our 2 and 4 program, which is a great way to finance your career. You can apply for one of these programs and earn both a bachelor's and master's degree in 4 years. And if you want more information about that, please contact me. We have most of those programs are aligned with an MBA or business analytics degree at the master's level. We just opened our nursing program. We'll take in our first class this fall. So we will be accepting students for our first cohort of nursing students this fall. We also have an esports team, okay? And our esports is something that's been becoming more popular in the United States and around the world. Many institutions have esports clubs. College St. Rose has a team, which means that we also offer scholarships for the varsity members of the sports team. So you can earn an additional amount above and beyond your academic scholarship if you are currently ranked in one of the games that we offer. So, and then of course we offer dedicated scholarships for international students that range from 15,000, start at 15,000 and go all the way up to 22,000. So let's talk a little bit about the scholarships for international students. First of all, I want to just frame this discussion looking at 2 points: value versus cost. A lot of students they look at the price tag. First of all, that initial price tag for tuition, room, and board, you should just ignore that because most institutions are going to offer some scholarships and you will get a discounted rate off the tuition. So first of all, don't worry about the cost. Think about the value of your education. What is it going to mean once you graduate? What kind of job you're going to get? What kind of salary you're going to be able to earn? How is this going to improve your ability to provide for yourself and your family? So you need to do a little bit of thinking, place yourself at the end of your academic program and know that once you graduate, you're going to be able to really give back to those people who supported you throughout your academic career. So please consider value of your education and not just the cost when you're evaluating where you want to go. So on-campus scholarships, in addition to the scholarships, graduate assistantships, academic scholarships, and the other scholarships that Rachel mentioned, I already talked about sports scholarships in reference to esports. So in addition to esports, there are many institutions, mostly Division I and Division II institutions. If you're not familiar with those terms, the national organization that governs sports at the college and university level is called the NCAA, National Collegiate Athletic Association. And they govern the requirements and the standards and everything regarding how sports are managed at the university and college level. There are 3 different divisions: Division I, Division II, and Division III. But only Division I and Division II award scholarships. So if you're an athlete and you want to participate in sports, you're good, let's say, good in soccer, that's American version of soccer. You probably call it football, or let's say another sport like tennis or rowing or basketball or baseball. You can potentially earn a scholarship. You need to be aware, however, of some facts, okay? First of all, the way these scholarships are awarded is they're awarded by the coaches of each of the teams. And they want to know what your athletic ability is. So you need to be prepared to demonstrate your athletic ability through a number of different ways. They're going to ask for, because you're overseas, they can't go see you play in high school. They can't go see how well you perform in your sport in person. So they're going to want to see some video of you playing. So if you're currently in high school and you're looking potentially to play at the collegiate level, make sure you get some video of your athletic ability. Post it on YouTube so it's easily accessible. That's probably the best way. In addition to that, they're going to want to know about your ranking and the ranking of your team within the local and national competition. So please make sure you track all your statistics in regards to your performance. And finally, they're going to want to know from your coaches how well you are as a team member. And you should start working on this and getting in touch with the institution at least a year in advance. Sometimes coaches need players at the last minute, but it's often better to develop a relationship with the coach so they can prepare and keep you in mind as they're building their team for that year, and they're looking to see what they need in terms of positioning on that team. Of course, we also have dedicated scholarships for our international students. In addition to the academic scholarships, there are often other scholarships such as international scholarships to cover housing, to cover travel, to cover the cost of applying for your visa. You may want to ask about these. And so please, I want to emphasize, just like Rachel talked about, each institution is different. I want to emphasize, always make sure you ask for a little bit more, okay? Because you may be surprised. It may not be a lot, but an extra $500 or $1,000 a year could really make a huge difference. So never be afraid to ask. There are additional scholarships, just like there's sports scholarships, there are additional scholarships depending on your major. If you're applying to a new program that's just starting up, first-year programs often offer some additional incentives for students who are willing to take a chance on that new program. Special programs such as the performing arts, dance, theater, writing, engineering, and business, science programs may have specific scholarships for those majors. So please check into that. Graduate degree programs, in addition to the graduate assistantships, there may be special scholarships for specific majors within those programs. And of course, there are also potentially, again, special scholarships for international students. Sometimes donors, alumni set aside money specifically for international students, and you can ask for that. Sometimes these are 1-year increases in your financial aid, but potentially they could be 4-year increases for your entire academic career. In addition to that, you can also take advantage of the opportunity to work. It's not always the best option, especially in your first semester, because you're getting used to the culture, you're getting used to the new location, you're getting used to different language or teaching style, but it is an option you should look into. Keep in mind that working on campus, there often are a limited number of spaces for student workers on campus, and it can be very competitive. So I always advise international students to spend that first semester acclimating, getting used to their new environment, but also making connections, networking, getting to know people, getting involved in clubs and other activities. So as these opportunities come up, whether they're in the International Center or Student Affairs or Residence Life, that people will know you. They know you want to get involved. They know you're active. They know that you're somebody they can rely on. Often a volunteer position can turn into a work position, a paid work employee position on campus in your second or third semester. But there are some restrictions. Work on campus is limited to 20 hours a week during the academic year. You can work more during the breaks and over the summer if the position is available. But again, it's not always guaranteed, and you need to really do your networking in order to get these positions. After you completed a full year of study, you can apply for what's known as curricular practical training, or CPT. Again, this option does permit you to work off campus in an internship position, and there are restrictions regarding that type of work as well. It needs to be tied to your course of study, needs to be approved by your faculty, and needs to be submitted for approval by your international office. So make sure that you consider that option as well. But again, you have to complete a full year of study before you can take advantage of that as well. And of course, when you graduate, you can continue on and stay in the United States. And it can be a path towards financing your academic career, because if you've taken out a loan, staying on for an additional 1 to 3 years, depending on your major, can assist you in paying off those loans by working full-time in the United States. So please keep that in mind. Both CPT, curricular practical training, and optional practical training after you graduate, OPT, are great opportunities to pay back loans and then begin to build your career after you graduate. Just wanted to review our academic scholarships. These are guaranteed scholarships for our international students. And as I mentioned, they range from about $15,000 to $22,000, and they're guaranteed for 4 years, depending on your academic performance at your high school level. Here's my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to turn this over now to Juana. Thank you very much for your attention, and we're going to try to answer your questions at the end. Thank you. Let me see. Okay, there you go.
Thank you, Alfredo. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Juana Alcala, and I am going to be sharing information about community colleges in the US with everyone today. And then I believe I'm the last presenter. So at the end of this segment, we'll be able to get started with, whoops, sorry, for some reason, I'm not able to. Can everyone see my screen okay? Yes?
Yeah, we can see your
Good?
screen, yeah.
Great, okay, perfect. So today I'll be representing the community college perspective in this conversation. And I am with South Puget Sound Community College, and we are located in the capital city of Washington State. Many people think that Seattle is the capital of Washington, but it's actually Olympia. We're about 1 hour south of Seattle. capital city of Washington State. And my school, South Puget Sound Community College, we officially opened our doors in 1962. However, community colleges have been a big part of the history of higher education in the US. Community colleges initially were founded in the early 1900s, and there are about 1,000 community colleges in the US. And in the state of Washington, we have almost 30 community colleges. And community colleges are a wonderful way for international students to be able to access an opportunity for higher education in the US. Something that is not commonly known is that nearly 50% of all college students in the US attend a community college. So you can see that there are many students, international students, American students, that do believe in the value of a community college experience. At my school, we have about 7,000 students, a little over 100 international students. We're one of the smaller community colleges in Washington for the number of international students that we have. But 95% graduation and transfer rate for our international students. And the average graduating GPA is a 3.5 GPA. So many of our international students have an opportunity to be able to transfer to universities all over the US. And that's something that some of our students are a little bit confused by. They believe that if they attend a community college in a certain state, like Washington, like California, that also has community colleges, that you would need to stay in that state to transfer to a university. And that isn't necessarily the case. You can transfer your credits from a community college to New York if you'd like to. Or to Michigan at Grand Valley State. So the most important thing is that when you arrive at a community college, any student should begin working with their academic planner from the beginning, because that way you know that the classes that you will be taking will be transferring to that university that you're hoping to transfer to in 2 years' time or in 2.5 years' time. It just depends on how you progress through your degree. So what you're looking at now looks a little bit confusing, but it's an opportunity for us to be able to kind of break down the two paths that students traditionally take with their higher education. So when you look at the traditional path of attending a university right after high school, you can see that you have your freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, and then you earn your bachelor's degree. Or year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4 is how I'm breaking it down for our talk today. Then you can see on the other side of this infographic, the community college or junior college. And that is where you would spend 2 years out of the 4 years of your bachelor's degree with us or with another community college that's located in the US. And those 2 years count as the first 2 years of your bachelor's degree. Then you graduate after 2 years and earn what's called an associate's degree. And then you can transfer to a university and begin your junior year. Some students may choose to transfer after completing 12 credits or maybe after their first year. So you can consider transfer at any point. However, I encourage students to stay at their community college for at least 2 years to graduate with an associate's degree, so that way your degree is a little bit more transferable to that university. And they don't necessarily unpackage your transfer credits, meaning they can be a little bit more, they can decide which credits they would like to transfer at that university. But with an associate's degree, typically a university will say you've satisfied your general education requirements. Not always, but this is why it works really well to work with your academic planner with us from the very beginning so that we can ensure that this will be to your advantage, your time at a community college. Now, another area that I'd like to discuss as an advantage to community college, you heard Alfredo talk about the opportunity for CPT or OPT, curricular practical training, or OPT, optional practical training. At a community college, once you graduate with an associate's degree, you have an opportunity to do 1 year of OPT before you transfer to a university. So this is a wonderful opportunity for you to be able to gain some experience, earn some money, and then transfer to the university and continue with year 3 and 4. Then after you graduate with your bachelor's degree, you can do OPT again. After every degree you earn in the US, international students have an opportunity to work. And the amount of time that you can do OPT depends on the type of degree that you earn, the subject that you earn your degree in. So that's something to keep in mind. Curricular practical training is also an option at a community college as well, because all you need is 1 year of college experience to be able to apply for CPT, curricular practical training. And we have offices on our campus that will help you and assist you with that, in addition to international student offices that many community colleges and universities have. So as we continue in terms of the advantages of community college pathway, typically community colleges are less expensive than a university. They also give you an opportunity to improve your academic profile, help you build up on your academic skills. Admission is flexible. Traditionally, no SAT or ACT, TOEFL, or IELTS is required for admission to a community college. Many community colleges also have residence halls, homestays. I've already touched on some of those other areas. It's a simple application process and a quick admission decision. At South Puget Sound, we have 4 quarters. We're a quarter system. So we have intake every 4 months. Students can begin their education with us. We also provide scholarships for students as well. Many community colleges do offer some sort of scholarship for international students in Washington. I wanted to spend a little bit of time on this slide to talk a little on cost. So you can see here that the estimated cost, and I'm using my college as an example for cost here. Our annual tuition and fees is a little over $11,000 a year. That's all of your tuition and fees at South Puget Sound Community College. You can compare that, and I did a little bit of a conversion for you. So you can see the PKR amount next to the tuition and fees. So I also took an average cost of a public state university. For their tuition and fees alone, please keep in mind, this does not include housing, personal expenses. Your typical tuition and fees at a public university is over $35,000 a year. So by attending a community college for just 2 years, you can save a lot of money. And then you can think long-term about your education. You can transfer to the College of St. Rose, Grand Valley State, graduate with a bachelor's degree. The money that you saved by attending 2 years at a community college, you can then invest in a graduate degree in the US as well. So it helps you stretch your money a little bit farther. Now in this slide, you can see the different options at a community college. You can either earn a certificate, you can also earn a professional technical degree, and you have an opportunity for optional practical training. Professional technical degrees are, examples are like automotive technology is a professional technical degree. After you earn that degree, traditionally students go to work. It's not a pathway to a university for a bachelor's degree. Then you have the associate degree, which is that green pathway. That's your traditional pathway to a university. And then, as I shared, you can also just go to a community college for a minimum of 1 quarter to build up maybe your English proficiency, your academic skills, and then you can transfer to a university if you'd like to do that. One of the other trends that we are seeing with international students, we have international students who attend our community college who are looking towards graduate degrees. So an example I have to share is we have a student who earned their bachelor's degree in Korea, their master's degree in Japan. Then they decided they wanted to go to a physical therapy program, a doctorate of physical therapy program. So they came to SPSCC and they took all of the prerequisites that they were missing in their previous degrees to be admitted to a doctorate of physical therapy program. And that student was admitted to 3 doctorate of physical therapy programs, one in California, here with the University of Washington, and then one in New York. So there's an example, because I believe we have some graduate students in our audience, of how you can leverage a community college to be able to help you achieve your academic goals. Another area I wanted to explore with you today briefly is we have what's called in Washington a dual degree program. This means that after 10th grade at home, you can get started on your college degree early. So after 10th grade, you apply to a community college that offers this program, a dual degree program, which means that in 2 years, once you graduate with an associate's degree, you will earn a Washington State diploma and an associate's degree at the same time. So that saves you a little bit of time by skipping essentially the last 2 years of high school in Pakistan or wherever you might be. Scholarships, I touched on those. We award scholarships anywhere from $500 up to $4,000. And the typical process is very similar to what was shared in terms of how do you apply for scholarships. You're asked to do an essay. You're asked to also get some letters of recommendation. We look at you holistically as a student. So GPA is not the only deciding factor as to whether or not you would be eligible for a scholarship with us. So something to think about as well. Perfect. And that rounds out my segment of how you can leverage community colleges to achieve your academic goals. And I think we're ready for questions.
Yes, we are. Thank you so much for that, Juana. That was great. Thank you, Rachel and Alfredo. Those are really great presentations. So we have some questions here today, and I see that some of you have answered some of them as well. And I saw that some of you identified some that you wanted to answer live. There's a lot of questions about, oh, does the university have this program and this program? And I thought it would be better if we could have a discussion, that would be more beneficial to the students. And I have some questions that I wanted to ask. In terms of on-campus employments, I know a lot of international students sort of have this perception that they would be able to somehow, make lots of money on campus employment, or, pay for their tuition, or pay for their rent or something like that. So if you could just speak a little bit about on-campus employment for international students at your institute. I know that you guys touched on it as well a little bit, but is it possible for you, just to clarify, for students to pay for your tuition or, for your big expenses through on-campus employment?
Yes, as Rachel's probably going to say, it depends on the campus. Yes, and also it depends on the state, because each state has its own minimum wage requirements. So if you go to a state like New York, it's going to be slightly higher than if you go to another state like Texas, which the minimum wage is much lower. So you could earn, but again, you also have to balance that with the cost of living. That's why if you earn a higher wage in New York City, it may turn out to be less than a wage in a city like Albany that is smaller, and the cost of living is actually quite reasonable compared to a large city in the same state. So both between states and within a state, it depends on the minimum wage requirement that that school must pay. It depends on the type of job, and it also depends on the cost of living. But you really, on-campus job is really going to cover your basic expenses, have a little extra spending money, maybe pay for you to go shopping and spend some time with your friends. It really should not be counted on to pay for your tuition. But anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Juana, were you going to say something?
Yes, I can just follow up and give an example just as a guide for our audience here today. So in the state of Washington, the minimum wage per hour is $13.50 an hour. So our students are eligible to work only a maximum of 19 hours a week, and that's a college policy. So at 19 hours a week, an international student would earn about $256 a week. So that's just our students have an idea of how much they earn or potential for earning.
Yeah, great, thank you. I was also wondering if you could speak a little bit about how the COVID-19 situation is affecting funding, at your institutes. So does that mean that there's going to be lower numbers of scholarship that are being handed out? Has there been any change in funding in terms of scholarships and financial aid because of the coronavirus?
I can speak on that just briefly. I mean, if you've earned a scholarship through Grand Valley, we're not going to revoke that. So funding would be maybe more related to like if a department has to get rid of a graduate assistantship. That's the only thing I can think at the top of my mind that might be adjusted or changed. But at least at Grand Valley, if you've earned a scholarship through us, that is your scholarship. If you're unable to come for fall, we'll work with you to change that funding to come in for spring. If you're going to defer for a full year, that's a different conversation to have because it would be different funding. I don't know if Fredo or Juana wanted to touch on that as well and see if it's a little bit different at your institution, but for ours, if you have that aid, that is yours.
Yeah, that's true. There should be no change in any aid offered. I would say that in terms of finances, there may be, some outside aid that would be affected, but in terms of your tuition aid, it should remain the same if it's already been awarded.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And then somebody here is asking, will international students be able to join the fall 2020 session in person? I mean, aside from the visa situation, if you could speak a little bit about what are your institute's plans for fall teaching?
I'll touch on ours. So we are not going to be 100% online. We're going to have a variety of different ways our classes are going to be taught. Some in person, some hybrid. So you meet a couple of times throughout the semester, but mainly you're going to be meeting online, at least, the minimum amount required to be an international student on campus. And then some are going to be fully online. So that's how our university is. Each university is going to be different. So if Alfredo and Juan, if you want to talk about your institutions and see how they're going to be going for fall.
Thank you. Yes, I'll touch on for South Puget Sound Community College. We have been operating these last several months under a hybrid model. Some of our programs, you're just not able to learn virtually. So nursing, courses with lab requirements, automotive technology. So we do and have been offering in-person classes. in addition to online virtual classes as well. So international students are welcome to join us. And we have students who have continued to enroll new international students with us. We just started our summer quarter on July 6th, and we're looking forward to fall 2020 and more students joining us as well.
Great.
And we're also, College of St. Rose is also offering both in-person, online, and hybrid courses. All our international students are going to be fine in terms of the recent new ICE recommendations. In addition to that, and speaking of scholarships, if you are accepted and you'll receive your tuition scholarship, as long as you enroll full-time, which may be difficult because of the time difference, although we're offering a number of both asynchronous and synchronous courses, meaning we're offering courses that are both, you have to attend at the same time that the course is offered, but also a number of courses that are being offered where you can log in and you see a recorded lecture or do an assignment at a time that it's good for you. If you enroll for a full-time set of courses, a minimum of 12 credits, you would still be eligible for your tuition scholarship. So even if you're in Pakistan, as long as you enroll full-time, you would still get that tuition scholarship.
Okay, great, thank you. Also, I was just curious about, and I know a lot of students have a question about how, so, you know, how, and apart from the teaching, in terms of admissions, how are your institutes adapting to the coronavirus situation in terms of the admission process? So for example, students who are unable to give their standardized tests, whether it's for graduate or undergraduate programs, the SAT or the GRE, if they're not able to take that in time of the deadlines for, you know, fall admissions, how are you adapting to that? And, you know, would there be any difference in how you review scholarship applications in light of the fact that, you know, some students cannot give their standardized exams?
Basically, it really depends on the program. I know that for many of our graduate programs, they don't necessarily require a GRE or a GMAT or a similar entrance exam. Oftentimes, you'll have to submit it in times past if you didn't meet the minimum GPA. But I know for many that do require a test, they were very flexible with this incoming fall class, and we're mentioning, you know, if you don't have a test, that's okay. Still send all the documents that you can, and then they would review. I encourage you, if you have been working with the department, especially for a graduate program, and you've been working with a professor, make sure you're contacting them and keeping them updated on your application or whomever you are talking with about the application process. As for scholarships, that does really vary on the institution. At Grand Valley, we're not awarding scholarships based on the SAT, ACT, TOEFL, or IELTS results. Instead, okay, offering scholarships based on the complete application, so everything that is submitted. This is where it really depends on the school, and I know other schools have been much more flexible, so I'm not sure if either of you two can be a little bit more, can touch on that part where it's a little bit more flexible, but we never required a particular test.
Okay.
Yes, so the College of St. Rose has always been test optional, just like Grand Valley State, so we don't require the SAT or the ACT for admission or for scholarships. We also, because of the difficulty in taking TOEFL or IELTS, we have expanded our range of opportunities to establish your English proficiency. So if you can offer other support, demonstrate that you are proficient enough in English to be successful at our institution, we will look at that as well. That can include an online test, and it can include if you're currently attending an international school with IB or other forms of where we know that the language of instruction is in English, and we can establish that firmly, then we will consider that as proof of your English proficiency. So I would say apply, and we will work with you on an individual basis to establish your admissibility and grant you the highest scholarship possible.
Great, thank you so much. Also, Juana, do you have something to add?
No, we practice the same. I mean, we just please contact us and we can work with you individually because everyone has their own unique case and we can help you get through the process.
Great. Yeah, please contact, and if you need contact information for them, I mean, they can put up, if you guys can just put on your email addresses in the Zoom chat, I think that would be great because people can then just contact you after the end of the webinar. In terms of graduate admissions, is it a good idea or is it a good practice to contact professors in advance for, is that how graduate assistantships like teaching assistantship or research assistantship is awarded? Because I know a lot of students here have questions about, should we contact the professors, or is that how you award? I mean, do they get to have a say in, should you, whether you get a TA-ship or a RA-ship or not?
I can touch on that. For a graduate assistantship, you have to be an accepted student to even apply. So if you haven't even submitted an application or sent in documents, you can reach out to them and get a better understanding of what they have to offer, but they really can't assist you too much until we know that you met their admission requirements. Now, after you submit everything, if you want to reach out and say, hey, I completed my application for the Masters of Public Health, I'm interested in getting graduate assistantships, you can do that, but I would encourage students to reach out to them once we have something on file or you've been accepted. If anyone wants to add anything.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Okay, let me see if there's any more questions that we can answer from the chat. I mean, there's a lot of questions about, do you have this program or not? And I believe, people can go onto the websites to get full lists of the programs that are available at each of these institutes. But I don't see any more questions related to financial aid or the financial aid aspect. So before we sign off, do you guys have any last words? If you want to say something, any advice to the applicants about how to make your application more competitive for funding, or any last words that you would have for the students watching today?
I'll jump in really quickly, just something to reiterate what I said. Apply early, reach out to the admissions office, reach out to us. The sooner you start that communication with us, the easier and smoother the process will be as you transition from your country or your area of study to our institution. So open up that communication. Coming to these webinars are fantastic. That's a great step, but feel free to reach out and have a more one-on-one conversation with one of us. I think I'd highly recommend that.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Juana.
Oh, no, I just said perfect. Yes, please.
Okay, great.
It's been a pleasure chatting with everyone today. And the U.S. has so many different types of higher education, community colleges, junior colleges, private, public universities. And I think that exploring your options as early as possible, starting those conversations early, just makes it so that you'll be successful in achieving your goals.
Yes, and make sure to visit your EducationUSA office. Get advice on writing that essay. And they are a great help and a great partner for all higher ed institutions in the United States. And this is actually, even with all the difficulty, this is actually a great time to apply as an international student because it's forced us to think creatively in terms of working with international students. So you can certainly find a path for yourself in this time.
Thank you so much. So thank you to all our panelists today, Juana, Alfredo, and Rachel, for waking up really early, I'm sure, in the US and doing this session for us. It was really helpful, and I'm sure a lot of students got to learn a lot today about financial aid and the opportunities available. So thank you so much for your time. I hope everybody has a good day, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.